Christian, welcome to Commodity One-on-One. How are you, sir?
Yeah, very well over here in Australia, getting warm. How are things over there?
Very good.
A little chilly, but we'll deal with it. Now, Christian, we have a lot to talk about, so let's get right into it. Now, I wanted to start with some big picture stuff because you travel over the world. You've been in the copper industry a long time. You're a big picture thinker. S&P just released a copper report that showed the average new project took 17 years from discovery to first production, and that compares to 13 years back in the mid 2000s. Can you just help us understand the major driver or drivers of elongated development cycles nowadays?
Yeah, no, great research from S&P, and it's something that we've been seeing for a long time. Mines are getting harder to build, and they're taking a lot more time. This is really about internal factors and external factors, the things that you have little control on. The regulatory side is one of the key drivers for those timeframes. If you take just the securing of water assets in the Atacama for Hot Chili for our large project that we're developing, that took 10 years. And we're actually still through that permitting process to add another water concession. So probably a 12, 13-year process. So those are the kind of external factors. Obviously, commodity price, bringing projects on at the right time in the right funding environment is really at the forefront of most CEOs' mindsets. But then there's also the internal factors. Most of these copper projects are skewed to the right. The copper sector is a bulk commodity sector. They're large drill outs, and this is about availability to capital.
Now, just wanted to start at a high level on Hot Chili. For people who are watching that don't know your company, can you just take us through the long-term vision and how your recent acquisitions and drilling will help you get there?
Yeah, sure. Look, we have 1 billion tons of resource base put together on the coastline of Chile. It's a very different project to the very few peers that sit in this space. I think there's only 5 of us that have projects capable of 100,000 tons per annum of fine copper production outside of the majors. So, look, we're in a pretty exclusive club, but we're certainly the only one that sits down on the coastline in the middle of infrastructure at low elevation. So that's firstly a key differentiator. We've been investing in this project for a good part of 14 years, doing all the necessary early permitting work. And what we're really trying to establish is a project that will sustain a 20 to 30 year mine life, and probably at elevated production levels to what we put out on that PEA about 18 months ago. We're about to put out a pre-feasibility on this project. We're also pushing down the throttle on some exciting growth at the moment and really trying to plot a pathway forward to double this project and really establish ourselves within the tier 1 space of the copper sector.
Great. Yeah, you got a lot of exciting things going on. Now, we know how important access to funding is for an explorer. You guys are lucky enough you haven't had trouble raising the cash you need to push the project forward. Have your major shareholders played an important part in your ability to keep raising money, would you say, or is it just like your grassroots getting the word out and the asset itself?
Yeah, look, and that it's always been a strength of Hot Chili. We've had fantastic major shareholders that have supported us through a very long journey. We started this company in the last cycle. Unfortunately, not the best of timing getting a discovery as copper's coming off of its highs. But those large shareholders incubated and protected the company so we could hold the assets, reinvent ourselves, quadruple the resource base, and be positioned where we are now as one of very few projects that's capable of this scale production coming into the end of the decade. So Glencore is our largest shareholder, contributor in the last raising. Our former chairman, Murray Black, and his group, which I'm associated with, have continued to support the company. And that's been a real key strength of Hot Chili. But now as we get very meaningful, we're into the pointy end. Institutional support has been very strong since our dual listing about 3 years ago. And now that's opening up to options as we start to advance our project financing in the next couple of years following our bankable studies. So yes, financing is absolutely key in this commodity space for a junior to be able to succeed and get as far as Hot Chili has. Not many make it.
Great. Thank you for that, caller. Now I want to move on to your resource. So you have more than 4.3 million copper equivalent tons currently. You've grown that a lot. You were at a much smaller number a few years ago. Just wondering, what's the resource number you want to see to ultimately develop the Costa Fuego project? I know you've mentioned you're looking at upping the production amount, the size of the project. Would you like to see bigger resource numbers? Are these numbers enough to keep going the way they are? What's your feeling right now where you are?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, a billion tons are put together at the moment, 85% indicated. So the hard work's been done in terms of the expenditure in ground, and that's supporting a mine plan which is moving towards 20 years at around 100,000 tons of fine copper and 50,000 ounces of gold. That for us is a stage one project. It's something that we can commit our timelines to deliver that finance investment decision in the back end of 26, possibly early 27, and get this project into production, into construction. So that is what we're committing on. But what we are doing is layering on a new level of growth. We are hoping to take this project towards 150,000 tonne per annum scale and build that mine life towards 30 years. But we're not letting any success on that front and any parallel investment change those timeframes. So any growth that we see, expansion of capacity or expansion of mine life, that will be coming in similar to what the guys at Teck are doing with Quebrada Blanca. They had a QB1 and now they're moving to a QB2 upgrade. We're taking a very similar approach. We'll have a Costa Fuego 1. That's what we're committing to at the moment. So we can get exposure to copper price in the latter part of this decade. That's where we see big things happening with the copper price and therefore our leverage formula. And any growth that gives us further exposure will be taken on as a Costa Fuego 2 development and upgrade.
I like that. So you're pushing hard towards a certain date, so you have cash flow coming, but it just depends on how big the project's going to be ultimately.
Exactly, and that may well give us a very, very nice tailwind to be able to scale this up in the early parts of the 2030s. But certainly, you know, what we don't want to do is see any of our final permit application for an environmental impact assessment that'll be submitted mid next year. We don't want to see any delay to that. Once that goes in, it sets our time clock, and we're on a pathway to project financing. So then it's all about how we skin that cat, and that is the well, probably not the $1 million question. That's the $1 billion question. And so, you know, key growth drivers around our water business and how we monetize that asset to effectively fund this copper project. That is probably the biggest differentiator that the company is now possessing.
And maybe, yeah, and just on that, I would love for you to expand on that water asset. But this is something that's not talked about in the mining world, right? And it just the importance of water, and you know, maybe just helping our audience understand how you can monetize and the value around it.
Even having these rights, yeah. It's not like every project has water rights.
No, and if you're lucky enough and you're in the world's largest copper producing country in Chile, and most of that country that copper production comes from the Atacama, and over the last decade we've moved from, you know, water stress to now, you know, a situation which dictates that no new mining developments or existing mining developments are all moving to water extraction from the sea. And in most cases, about 75% of projects will require to desalinate that water to be able to process. We're in the lucky basket where our ore bodies produce better copper recoveries just using saltwater processing. So that's a fantastic situation to be. Fantastic that the company made that decision over 12 years ago to apply for its own maritime concession. But we find ourselves in quite a unique area of Chile. We're in the Huasco Valley, where we don't have large mines around us that 20, 30, 40 years ago secured their maritime concessions, and we have multiple water distribution networks in this area. We're in fact the holder of the only maritime concession. 10, 12-year lead time to secure a maritime concession. So we can supply water to ourselves in hopefully 2028 on a seawater supply basis, but we also potentially can supply desalinated water to this entire region, which is hosting 6 major undeveloped copper projects. Our partners, CMP, largest iron ore producer of Chile in the area, needing further desalinated water supply. So we're in this very, very unique situation where everyone needs our water to be able to develop their projects, unless they want to wait 12 years and make their applications now. So that puts us in the box seat to be able to consider, things that are going on in Chile. Maybe the world's not watching this closely enough, but a lot of big projects are outsourcing their water supply. Most people don't know that BHP operates its Spence operation, one of their major copper producing business units in Chile, and they don't actually supply their own water. That's supplied by a third party to BHP, and that is continuing in Chile. Antofagasta, as I've mentioned a few times, recently sold their water rights to their Centinela operation for $600 million US, and that allowed them to reduce the capital required for their upgrade by close to $400 million. So Hot Chili is very much not inventing this or setting a precedent. We're just following what the industry is doing. These water rights are so critical to be able to actually build a project now in the Atacama, but most importantly, they offer us the ability to drive what is one of the lowest capital intensity projects in the development pipeline even lower. We can pull out about another $150 million of capital outside of the $1 billion that we were requiring to build this. And most importantly, we have a lineup out the door of major tier one water investors that are looking for exactly these type of projects to be able to purchase, to be able to finance, and to be able to build and then supply water on long-term contracts. What's really, really unique here is that we are actually the offtake partner ourselves. So we control the ability to be able to monetize this because we hold a 20-year offtake agreement that we will require for Costa Fuego. And that's pretty powerful. I don't think the market really understands what we're about to do. And so I imagine the monetization of this asset will add immediate accretive value to the company. Probably
like it will be a surprise.
Well, yeah, you're getting a 2-for-1, right? In HCH shares, right? And you know what? So I was going to send you. So there's a BlackRock water ETF, and their top holding is like a hotel company. I'm like, put Hot Chili in there. They've got a hotel company, and who knows how that gets in there. But it's the BlackRock water ETF. I'm like, put in Hot Chili. That's a real water
you got to pitch them, pitch the PM there.
We're gonna that I thought that's the first place we go with this. I'm like,
yeah. Look, I mean, there are a lot of options that are available to Hot Chili, and discussions around royalties on their water supply. There's a huge amount of discussions going on with all of the parties that are in the Huasco Valley that are now very, very aware of what we're holding. It's of huge interest to all of them, particularly around their development timelines and what that might provide for them for early development optionality. But most importantly, we've been surprised with the customers that are coming out of the valley itself, from the communities to the government to the local community groups that we're dealing with, as well as agro-industrial players in the valley. So, this is looking like a potential enabler for a dramatic investment push in the Huasco region. And if you were up in the Copiapó region and you were Hayden Black sitting there with Marimaca, another fantastic copper developer in our space, he's up there and he's blessed with the fact that the Copiapó Valley has a number of major mines. And so it has a number of water distribution networks that are available, that are being shared between projects. So projects like that, they also probably need to thank their lucky stars where they found their assets. But for a greenfield project in an area that has very few operating mines and no water licenses established, we're a first mover in this area, and it's exposed us not just to the copper business, but to the global water business. And that's really unique now in our story.
Yeah, well, hopefully it's less of a surprise now after commodity one-on-one.
That's right.
Yeah.
But now, Christian, you have a lot of stuff going on. You're a busy guy. There's a lot of stuff going on at Costa Fuego. Could you just help kind of crystallize what the upcoming catalysts are and which you think are the most important that investors should be watching for?
Yeah, look, we're getting really close now to our key catalyst delivery. Two pre-feasibilities that have been brought into parallel now. We delayed one slightly, we pulled one forward slightly, and we're looking to deliver those both into Q1 next year. So going into the end of the year, that's pretty exciting. Our teams across both of those studies, and we also have a contribution on a port study going on also with our partners at Porto Los Lozos. But all of those studies are pushing pretty hard into the end of the year. A lot of the gloss will be put on all of those things as they're prepared and go through their final stages of risk assessment. But we're pushing towards those key catalyst deliveries in Q1, which then leads on to the submission of our EIA mid-year. But in terms of driving alpha for the stock, because certainly the copper price environment, as you guys said rightfully, while we're in a good copper price environment, we're not seeing those lofty heights of $5.20 a pound that briefly were exposed earlier in the year when we had a short squeeze on copper. But what we are seeing is sort of depressed equity market conditions. At the same time, Hot Chili was really pushing through a lot of the hard work, the part of the Lassonde curve that no one really wants to be trapped in, and you often find that companies will try to offset that by introducing exciting news flow or alpha, what they say. And so that's what we've been waiting very patiently on our consolidation efforts to be able to secure. So we brought in La Verde. It's a fantastic piece of the puzzle. We've been waiting, and we've been developing a relationship over 6 years with the private owners of that lease. It was never previously held outside of that family. Hud Bay, in fact, surrounded that area, had drilled some holes around it. We're very excited about it, but they just couldn't get their hands on the center of what is a porphyry footprint that's equivalent to the size of Cuerpo 3, our largest porphyry at our cornerstone asset, Cortadera, 30 kilometers to the north. That's a porphyry that delivered 500 million tons for the company. So we've finally got our hands on it. We've got our hands on all of the land around it. It's taken us a long time. We've got drill rigs turning. We really like what we saw coming up in the initial drilling, and those drill rigs. That drill rig hasn't stopped. We'll be drilling all the way through to Christmas. Hell, we may even continue that drilling. But at the moment, we're about to, unveil our new growth asset, and that's very much about plotting our pathway from 1 billion ton towards 2 billion ton. We're not finished on the consolidation efforts. As you know, 30 kilometers to the south of where we plan to centrally process is our big push. It's the Damaco Porphyry District, and there are multiple high-grade historical mines that have been privately owned, exploited for copper oxides, and never touched for their sulfide potential. That's very exciting for us, and we really see this entire district hosting a 2 billion ton copper hub, and that's something that is very exciting, and that news flow will start to filter into the market very shortly. We started drilling about a month ago, so I imagine those first assays are not very far off at all.
Perfect.
Christian, a lot of catalyst rich and exciting copper development, and you get a water play in there. You get the 2-for-1. Christian, thank you so much as always. That's Hot Chili Copper, one of the premier copper stories. Christian, thank you.
Thank you.